fantastic, you know, apart from a friend of mine who was the biggest Clash fan, but also the key holder. And because they didn't have a licence to play, insisted on them leaving the stage after about 20 minutes, half an hour, which obviously upset everybody, and I couldn't believe he did it, but there you go, jobs with. But still, it was really exciting and very nice to see such a band, you know.
The Bunker has been at the heart of the Sunderland music scene for over 2 decades. Originally set up by a musicians collective, the Bunker has been home to some of the region's biggest bands.
The Bunker is primarily a recording and rehearsal studios. The main aspect of the business is that we have 17 rehearsal rooms, 5 of which are hired out on an hourly or nightly basis, 12 of which are private rooms where bands will come and leave their own stuff in the room and come and go as they please. We have a recording studio which is underused at the moment, but it's there. Has a few rock bands coming in, we get a lot of backing track singers and stuff. On top of that, we put gigs on most nights of the week in Sunderland. We manage a couple of bands, and we have a small independent record label with about 12 releases on it. Basically, we offer everything for a band from the start up, come and rehearse, come and record, and then we can put the record out and give them a gig.
It's really helped the scene. I think initially it's changed over the years. When it first started, it was really just a musicians collective that formed it, and they basically just had an old property in the East End which they turned into 2 or 3 practice rooms, you know. So it was fantastic just for bands to be able to rehearse, because at that time the only rehearsal places were out of town, and they seemed really expensive at the time. So it was really good for that first wave of Sunderland bands, you know.
I think now, over the past sort of 5 years, it's become it's played more of an important role. When we took over the building, there was only 2 rehearsal rooms, and it was still important then. There were the odd rehearsal rooms set up, but I think because when we took over, our idea was to keep the building as a solely music business, because it previously had different art workshops and dance groups and stuff. And the idea was to try and do what we've set up now, a sort of a one-stop shop really. And now with 17 rooms at any one point, you could have 17 bands here. The atmosphere is completely different, everybody sort of feels part of it, I think. And I think that, probably if you ask other people, they'd say that, if it wasn't here, you'd have, I suppose, 17 bands without a home to go to, I suppose.
The Bunker is very important to the music scene, because I think it's the only place that really it's established bands that want to play gigs, and they can come here to get information on how to progress within the music industry, and it can give people all sorts of information to further their careers as a musician.
I think in a sense it's unique. I don't think there's many other cities that have got a central point like that, which works as a place where bands interact with each other, they practice, they record, and the Bunker's been there for as long as I can remember, and for 2 generations before that. It's brilliant in a sense. It's totally unique, as I've already said, and it's always. When I worked there, it's almost a different generation now, but it still does the same job. It still provides a base for people to operate from. It's definitely a good thing. Every city should have one.
In the 1990s, rock music was prevalent, but a new music genre was emerging. This in turn would launch Kinnicky, a band who later signed to EMI Disc.
In the 90s, I was kind of, that's when I grew up, I suppose, and in a way it was a lot like it has been recently. Kinnicky were the same age as me, were very young, and there was a lot of young bands who were trying really hard. There was a sense of community helped by things like the Bunker, where people could meet up, and Kinnicky got massive, and it was great. It was weird. People who you knew from playing gigs at the Royalty with like 2 or 3 people in the audience were suddenly on top of the pops within a few years. and it was fantastic. It was a bit like it has been in the last few years, not as massive. But that was probably the highlight of, you know, music in Sunderland in the 90s.
In recent years, Sunderland has become nationally recognised for its music scene. Both NME and John Peel have publicly acknowledged the city and its music. And more recently, Radio 1 brought its One Big Weekend to the city, allowing local talent to be broadcast nationally.
I think at the minute there is a bit of focus on the city, but the city's, you know, undergoing quite a lot of redevelopment. Society's sort of changing, and, you know, alternative music's now at the sort of forefront of music.
To be honest, I don't see what the big, you know, why people might think it's so vibrant, because, you know, I've been coming to Sunderland all my life, so people outside might think, oh, it's totally different. But I can't really see that, to be honest. It's just, you know, it's just another town, really.
You know, most cities have got a good, you know, some sort of music scene going on, and I would imagine that Sunderland's not very different. It just happened that, you know, the media wanted to shine its magic torch on us for a year or so, and they were cool.
I think, you know, with the Future Heads, and since then Golden Virgins and Maximo Park and Feel the Music, they say in Vegas, you know, there's a few bands that they now get quite a lot of Radio 1 airplay. There was a bit of focus on Sunderland, and I think the sound was quite unique. It was very discordant punk music, and maybe that gave the idea that there was a bit of a scene here. I think the city's in its best state that I've seen it. In that, you know, there's more bars, there's more bands, there's more people going out to gigs, but certainly I think we've got a long way to go to create a real scene like that.
Well, it's fantastic at the moment. It's really fresh. Bands like the Future Heads and Field Music and the Golden Virgins, they've really put the town on the map at the moment, I think. So it's very good.
Although Sunderland does have a wide variety of live venues, there is a feeling across the city that it needs a larger music venue, similar to the Carling Academy in Newcastle.
Live venues has always been a problem in Sunderland, you know, going back to forever, really. You know, there's all the sort of legends about the Clash playing here, and they played in, like, well, the story gets banded around, but they allegedly played in the Bunker. The Stone Roses played in Rosie Malone's, which is like a basement, which is about the size of, you know, my head. There's never been a standalone venue until a few years ago, when there was a place called Bar 36, which was great. It was ideal, and at the time I was working at the Bunker, and there was some, you know, managed to attract some really good bands, Snow Patrol, and they were just coming up, likes of Kasabian bands who were like massive now. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Closed down, and Sunderland's crying out for a good venue. You know, rather than it being just, you know, function rooms in pubs.
I think we need 1,000 capacity venue centrally. I mean, Pew's been quite good, you know, but it's probably not quite big and it's not perfect. But yeah, it's something Sunderland's never really had. In say 78, 79, you get a lot of bands at the Polytechnic, and that was all right. But that doesn't happen anymore. The Manichee's just a little out of the way, but it's still an all right venue. But we do need 1,000 to 2,000 seater, I think, or standard.
It would be ideal if there was a standalone venue, and surprised, you know, no sort of businessmen, promoters have ventured into doing it yet, because I think, you know, people could probably make some money from it.
With the continued emergence of new talent in the city, the Sunderland music scene is set to remain vibrant for the foreseeable